Leviticus chapter 9. On the 8th day Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel. He said to Aaron, "Take a calf to offer a sacrifice for sin, and a ram for a burnt offering, both without any defect, and bring them before the Lord. Then say to the people of Israel, Take a goat to be offered as a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both 1 year old, and without any defect, for a burnt offering, and for a covenant sacrifice, an ox and a ram to be slaughtered before the Lord, and finally a grain offering mixed with oil, for the Lord will appear to you today." They brought what Moses had commanded in front of the tent of meeting. Then the whole community gathered and stood before the Lord. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded to be done, so that His glory may appear to you." Moses then said to Aaron, "Go to the altar and offer your sacrifice for sin and your burnt offering, and perform the rite of atonement for your sins and those of your household. Then present the people's offering to take away their sins as the Lord has commanded." Aaron went to the altar and slaughtered the calf as a sacrifice for his own sin. Then the sons of Aaron presented the blood to him. He dipped his finger in it and applied some on the horns of the altar, and then poured out the rest of the blood at the foot of the altar. The fat of the sacrifice for sin, and the kidneys, and the best part of the liver he burned on the altar, as the Lord had commanded Moses. The flesh and the skin he burned outside the camp. Next, Aaron slaughtered the animal which was for his own burnt offering. His sons handed him the blood, and he poured it on all sides of the altar. Then they handed him the quartered animal and its head too, and he burned these on the altar. He washed the internal organs and legs and burned them on the altar, in addition to the burnt offering. He then presented the people's offering. He took the goat for the people's sacrifice for sin, slaughtered it, and offered it as a sacrifice for sin in the same way as the first. Then he had the animal for the burnt offering brought forward, and offered it according to the regulations. Next, he had the grain offering brought forward, and took a handful of it, and burned it on the altar in addition to the morning burnt offering. Finally, he slaughtered the ox and the ram as a covenant sacrifice for the people. Aaron's sons handed him the blood, and he poured it out on the sides of the altar. The fat of the ox and of the ram, the tail, the fatty covering, the kidneys, the best part of the liver, all of this he laid on the breasts and burned it all on the altar. With the breasts and the right hind leg, Aaron made a gesture of offering by waving them as the Lord had commanded. Then Aaron raised his hands toward the people and blessed them. Having thus performed the sacrifice for sin, the burnt offering, and the covenant sacrifice, he came down. And Moses and Aaron entered the tent of meeting. Then they came out together to bless the people, and the glory of the Lord appeared to the whole people. A flame leaped forth from the presence of the Lord, and consumed the burnt offering and the fat that was on the altar. At this sight, the people shouted for joy and fell on their faces.